All right, folks, I'm headed to the office. I'm going to Twitter for a question, and I just wanted to, it's obviously kept anonymous. I wanted to say huge thanks to this person for sending it in. And I know them from across different social media platforms, so they know who they are. Thank you so much for your question and for being everywhere all the time. I do appreciate it. Their question is about software engineers on teams that, I don't want to read it verbatim, but kind of like you try to mentor or coach them, but like they're kind of not really open to it. They're almost just like quite content where they're at, is what it seems like. Sorry, I have like dog hair or cat hair in my eye. So it's not like they're bad. It's not like they're stupid or anything like that. It's like not, it's not that they are bad people on the team, but when you have other people that are like either as a manager, tech lead, team lead, or just more senior people trying to mentor, trying to help, you kind of have some people that are just like, they're not really receptive to it. And it doesn't necessarily mean they're pushing back and being mean. They're just like, hey, thanks, like whatever. Like, what do you do, right? Like, how much should you focus on this? Like, what's the emphasis here? The challenge ends up being that for engineers like this, sometimes they're kind of constrained to what they're able to work on effectively. So anything that's outside, like as this person wrote in, like anything outside of their comfort zone, they kind of need hand holding on it, right? So when the team is smaller, this makes things a lot more difficult. So like, what's up, right? So the question is really like, will it be obvious to the manager? If they're able to stay on simple things, usually like they're productive and that's good, but like how does growth look like for them, right? What happens when you have more features and stuff that are bigger coming up in the backlog? Should you care, right? So as an engineer that observes this of someone else on the team, should you care, right? That's kind of what this talk's going to be about. So let me get on the road here. It says 50 minutes to get to work, which is completely ridiculous. It's already 9:30. Is it because it's wet outside? I don't know. Can't ever seem to win. I'm hoping we get in the fast lane, and that's that. Part of me is like, if you've been watching the videos, then you know this car is beeping a lot, and I don't know what it is anymore. I was attributing it to, there's a wrap on the car, and I was just attributing it to the colder weather. But it's not like it was just wrapped or something. It's been wrapped for a few years. So if you're not familiar with the vinyl wrap, and this actually has an extra layer of laminate on it, if that's over the sensors, then it can block the sensors. And that would explain a lot of the beeping, but it's relatively recent. The beeping is just getting worse and worse. And I was like, maybe it's just because the wrap is starting to, I don't know, it's getting a little older. The weather's been cold. Maybe that's causing, I don't know, and grime and stuff on the car to build up. I don't know. Maybe that's contributing to it, but like, I don't know anymore. So it's frustrating. Anyway, if you want questions answered, you can leave them in the comments. If you want to do what this person did, then you can reach out to DevLeader on social media. That is my main YouTube channel as well, where I have more polished, edited down videos, because this channel is all about me just rambling, driving to work, driving from work, driving to CrossFit, driving from CrossFit. So if you don't like that style, but you like the topics, then you can check out my other channel, DevLeader. Okay, so first up, I need water. And there's caffeine in here too, which will help. But this is a really interesting question, because this is the kind of stuff that I don't feel like a lot of people pay attention to. This is the kind of thing that as an engineering manager, it's like, and I've been doing this type of role for almost 13 years now, I always see this kind of stuff. I have to pay attention to this kind of stuff because that's what my job is. But it's not something that comes up frequently when I talk to individual contributors. And I guess I should say it's not that they don't notice it, right? But it's not something I hear people bring up and talk a lot about. So I thought this context was kind of interesting. For a little bit of background, I can't remember specifically if it was team lead or tech lead, but this person has a team or tech lead kind of position. So in my opinion, that's a really good thing that they're noticing. Not necessarily that it's happening, but it's good that they're aware of it, right? I think that's a really good observation. And it's not something you just want to ignore. The other thing to mention that is, I guess, helpful for some context for why this person was curious about this is that they were describing their situation with how their manager is set up in their organization. It sounds like their manager spread across a handful of different things. And I'm not here to say that's good or bad. I'm just saying this is how it is. And the result of that is it's like their manager only seems to have like 20% time kind of thing with their dedicated team, which is, I mean, I said I wasn't going to say good or bad. That doesn't seem very sustainable. But I think this is why this person was saying, like, I'm a team lead for that kind of reason so that I can help support the team in different ways. Construction. I don't have the Insta360 going, so nice. Thanks for turning the sign around to let me go. So, right, this person is in this position where as they're doing their role, trying to be team lead and do it effectively, they're going, I'm noticing a pattern with some engineers where when it comes to mentoring, they're not really receptive. And the tricky thing here is I find, like, with a team lead role, like, a team lead is not the direct manager, so it's not like their responsibility for facilitating career growth and putting people up for promotion and stuff like that, right? So it's not the job requirement, but at the same time, like, I would say that good team leads are, of course, like, they're assisting with that, right? It's not, how do I say this? It's not the responsibility of the team lead to be able to go put people up for promotion. Like, that's not part of the role, but to help guide people, help mentor, to help them grow, like, that is certainly part of it, right? And, there's other roles on the team that will do this more informally, right? Like, please don't cross the road. Oh, man. This person has an umbrella over their head. They looked the other way before crossing the road and then took a step out onto the road. They would have died. They would have walked right in front of my car. So yeah, there's other roles, like, on the team that will do this more informally, like other individual contributors that are that have more seniority. They'll be helping out more junior people, that kind of thing. But it becomes a more formalized sort of responsibility of team leads to be able to help with mentorship and guiding and this kind of stuff. It's just not on the promotion or, like, actual career progression as a responsibility. So it's kind of weird because it's so, like, how do you balance that, right? Like, you're like, hey, I want to help this person be effective. I want to help coach them, but it's not like you have the say in the end, like, if they're getting promoted or not, right? So it's I understand that can put people in a tricky situation. Like, how much time do you go spend on that kind of thing if someone's not really receptive to it? So I wanted to talk a little bit about this topic from a different angle, and I talked about it in another video. And the tricky thing with stuff like this is that, like, no matter what I say here, it has to be a generalization. I don't really like generalizing things because I don't know. I don't know if it's my personality or what, but if someone makes a generalization, I like trying to pick it apart and saying, well, here's, like, in this situation, here's something more specific. In this situation, it's a bit of a different angle. So anytime I hear a generalization, I'm like, yeah, but, like, what about this or what about that? And so when I make generalizations, it feels kind of weird to me because I'm like, I want to acknowledge all of the nuances as much as possible. So I'm not going to be able to do that in a video as I'm driving to work. I just wanted to have that disclaimer that what I'm about to say, I think, is very much a generalization. And I encourage you as the viewer or the listener to kind of do the thought experiment and see like how might this look from different angles, okay? So in other videos, I've talked about this idea that, I think for many of us as software engineers, I think a lot of personality types in software engineering where people are like, hey, I want to do awesome work. I want to get promoted. It's all about like doing more, doing better, and kind of going up the ladder in our careers. And certainly not for everyone, right? Certainly not for everyone. But I think a lot of people, and it's not specific to software engineering. I personally see it a lot. My bias is obviously I work in the software engineering industry, but I think like part of that is really good where people are like, hey, I want to grow and do better, which is awesome, right? But when it's consuming you, that's where things like aren't so great, of course. Everything needs some type of balance. Now, what I've noticed is that more, at least from my perspective, my experience is that more often than not, people are leaning towards the, hey, like, what do I do for promotion? How do I focus on growth? That kind of thing. And because that ends up being the majority of what we see, and I'm generalizing, you might not have the same observation, but because that's the majority, when we have outliers to this, it feels kind of weird, right? So not everyone is hell-bent on more, promotion. Some people get to a point in their career and they're like, this is pretty good, right? I'm content with my pay. Like if someone paid me more money, sure, that would be nice. I don't think anyone's gonna cry about getting handed more money. But they're like, I have a good work-life balance. I'm working on interesting enough problems. I'm content. And like, it's almost weird to say that it sounds weird because what's wrong with that, right? Like nothing should be wrong with someone being like, hey, I've gotten to a point in my career, like, this is good. I'm doing my job, right? And that's why the person that wrote in is like, it's not like this person or these types of people are like bad engineers. It's not like, holy crap, we got this person on the team and they're terrible. What do we do to get them off? It's like, yeah, they're okay. But they don't seem to have an interest in growth. Or they don't seem to have, they're not receptive to mentorship. Because, in my opinion, a lot of the time, it's just about being content. And, like, is that actually such a bad thing? As an engineering manager, and again, that was my generalization. I'm not saying that is the case for everyone, my disclaimer again, but I've seen that happen a lot. I've actually had people that report to me in my career where they're like, yeah, things are good. And I have talked to people about, hey, like to get towards senior, here's what needs to happen. And they're like, oh, it's like, that's okay. Like, things are good. And then we would talk about it more and it's like, yep, no, understood. Like, that's clear. Like I, kind of working in general towards that, but like, things are good. Almost like if it happens, it happens. Like the opportunities are there, sure. But like otherwise, I'm going to keep doing, like you're telling me I'm doing good work. The compensation's there. I'm doing okay. Thanks. And again, it's not that it's wrong. But also as an engineering manager, like part of my responsibility is like trying to help people grow in their career. So I've had to balance this thing a lot because, get in here, buddy. Because when I see that happen, I go, is it something on my side where I'm failing to do my job effectively, right? We're supposed to have growth plans with everyone, making sure that everyone understands like their their trajectory, making sure people are aligned on expectations, and then you have someone who's like, nope, like things are good, like this is great, I'm happy right here, and I will keep taking more work that's like what you're giving me, and that's all goodness. And they are just content. So the tricky thing here is like what this person wrote in, and it's like, so maybe to wrap up that thought, I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. Okay, I wanted to acknowledge that based on everything else we generally see, it feels like it's a weird, uncommon thing, but I don't think there is anything wrong with that. I mentioned in one of the other videos, and I still can't remember the phrase for it, something like a terminus level or something like that, but many companies will have a level where they, again, sorry if the word is wrong, but the idea is that people will reach that level, and there should, from like the perspective of HR management, that kind of thing, people should be totally okay to just like hang out at that level. Like that is very acceptable. Like they've achieved, they've done well in their career to like hang out at that level. So probably not like as a junior software developer, like you're probably not hanging out there for your career. And even as a mid-level, probably not for your career, but like getting to like senior, like that's, if you were to hang out there for, the overwhelming majority of your career, that could be totally good. And that's like, I'm going to use like the word acceptable, but I don't know if that's the right word. It's like to push people beyond that isn't necessarily the expectation. And this will look different at different companies. Some places might not even be formalized, but it's a concept. Okay, so just to close off on that thought. Now let's go back to the implications of this on a team. So as an engineering manager, like I always talk about balance of things on teams, right? If I were to build a team of software engineers, what I wouldn't do is say, okay, where are the highest level principal software engineers I can find? I'm getting a team of 7 of them. And we're gonna go build stuff. I wouldn't do that because the type of work that you need to do on a team is going to include stuff that people at a principal level aren't going to be interested in. And odds are that if we have work that is at the principal level, we're not going to have, probably not enough of it that's that we need like 7 principal engineers to go do in parallel. So in general, it makes a lot of sense to have a sort of like spectrum of different levels. This car with the beeping, like, why are you beeping? So having juniors is helpful, having mid-level, senior, and and above is all helpful. But that also means that you have different personality types. You might have people that gravitate more towards mentoring. You might have some people that shy away from mentoring, but they're really good technically. So it's not that they're totally closed off, but they're like, look, like I am more effective at this, and I'm like, and that is my strength. And so instead of like, I don't know, taking away their ability to do something effective, it's like you leverage it. So you compensate by having maybe someone else on the team who's really strong at mentoring and wants to spend more time doing that, right? So balance. How do we take advantage of people's strengths and minimize their weaknesses and balance that out on the team? So when you have someone who seems to be kind of like at this content state where they're like, I am not, my view is like, I'm not really planning on growing much from the level I'm at. I'm not interested in taking on more responsibilities or more difficult things. I'm just good where I'm at. As a manager, that makes it tricky because it's almost like removing some flexibility, right? There might be individuals on the team that I know have career growth plans to go in some direction. And I know over time, the juniors will go to mid-level to senior. So like things are kind of flowing that way. But when you add in someone who's kind of just like at that level, for me, it's not a problem. It's just that it removes some flexibility. That's kind of how I would look at that. And having awareness of it is just really important because it's like, you kind of know what you're getting into with someone who's kind of like, I'm just content with where I'm at. So my comment back to the person that wrote this in terms of like, is the manager aware of it? Are they going to catch on? Should I tell them? I would say, like, as a team lead, it's probably worth having a conversation about it, right? And I know that this, based on how they wrote this, I know this person's coming from a good spot. They're not like, I'm going to go rat on this person because they're not an all-star. Like, that's not that's not what's happening. And I know based on other conversations, I feel like they have a pretty good head on their shoulders. So I think it's more about like, is this worth raising awareness? Is it something that I kind of step back from and the manager just figures out? But I think it's worth having a conversation, especially because it sounds like the way their team is structured, their manager's pretty removed. So maybe the manager doesn't have as much visibility into this, and that would be helpful. Again, it's not, like, from my understanding, this person's not trying to like tattle or like be a problem. It's mostly to raise awareness, like, hey, just so you know, like, we have a team staffed this way. It's pretty small, and like usually you're like finding ways to I don't know a good way to say this, like in a healthy way, like stretch people a little bit out of their comfort zone, right? That's how you grow. You work on some things that are less comfortable, you get good at them, and you have growth opportunities. So they don't have that with this person, right? So I think that is a helpful thing to discuss with the manager, to bring awareness to it and say, hey, look, like, just so you know, so-and-so on the team, you can even lead in with like, hey, they are doing good work at this level, right? We give them these types of tasks, they're getting through it, it's all good. But when it comes to stretching beyond that, either there's no interest or it's a lot more effort because we have to give them support, right? So I think the awareness part is helpful. Manager might be totally aware already and they're like, thanks, yeah, like we can, we'll just kind of close off on alignment there. Or it's like, it's news to the manager and they might say, okay, my understanding of like the team's growth trajectory would have looked like X before. Now it looks like this variation of that. Like, okay, interesting. Either they're adjusting their expectations for what the team's able to do, or they're going, maybe we need to have conversations about bringing in more help scaling the team. Depends on the scenario, right? But I think it opens up the door for conversation. So step one, in my opinion, is raise awareness of it in a constructive way, right? Which like I said, I feel like this person is approaching it that way. Number two is like, I wouldn't necessarily get hung up on it. I think, like I was saying, it's important to acknowledge it and have awareness, because part of it too is like, how much energy should you be putting into that? Because if you're like, I'm going to keep putting in energy to do this, and the person legitimately is just like, no, I'm good, and you're also acknowledging they're doing okay work, like it's not a problem, at some point, like, is it worth it? And I think at some point it's not worth it, right? Like, you're trying to move things in a direction that aren't really going to happen. Now, what I would add in, just as a side note, and this is more of like a, I guess like a personal thing for me, is part of me doesn't like to, and it's my own bias, because what I'm describing with individuals like that, it's not how my brain works, right? I'm not of them, like, I don't like being content. So I don't want to say it's right of me to like encourage people to go beyond that, but that's kind of like, based on who I am, it's kind of what I end up doing at some point, right? So I don't like just kind of surrendering to that mindset where someone's like, no, I'm just good. I do try to explore a little bit more, because often what I wonder when people say they're just content, again, nothing wrong with that. It makes me question, are you just content and like everything's okay-ish, or like, do you actually really enjoy what you're doing? because that's the next step for me, right? Sorry if this sounds like cliche or weird or dumb, I don't know. I haven't, a lot of these videos, it's like sometimes the first time I'm putting these thoughts together. So if I could do like what I envision is like a perfect job as an engineering manager, I would want to make sure that I'm finding, helping people find what they love to do. Ideally, they love to do the work with me on the team that we're on, and like that's all awesomeness. But also, if that's not how things pan out, like that's okay too. But part of me wants to make sure that people are able to find in their career what they love to do. So if someone's telling me, no, like I'm content, things are okay here, like it's good. Part of me wonders, like, maybe you don't love what you're doing though. And is there something we should be exploring together where I can help you find other things that you might love to do, right? So to make up a really dumb, contrived example, it's like when, before I was building desktop software, just to make a more clear example, maybe I have someone who's doing a lot of the user interface development, and they're like, hey, like I've been getting similar work like this, it's all good, I'm content, right? This is okay. Good work-life balance, I know what I'm doing, cool. But maybe they don't love it. And part of me would want to like have the conversation with them, like, hey, if this looked different, if you got to work on other things, like, would you love that more? I'm using a strong word like love on purpose, by the way, because my goal with saying that is like to put someone beyond the just I'm okay with it. And I say that because I don't know, for me, I don't think I want to go my entire career and reflect on it and say, yeah, my career was okay. Like, it's literally a large part of your life. So I would love to find ways to say, like, I loved what I was doing. Maybe not every moment of it, but I arrived at something that I love to do. And that's what I would want for my employees, right? So that's what I said. I realize it probably sounds cliche, corny, I don't know. But that's on my mind. I don't necessarily expect that of team leads or anything like that. I don't even expect that of other managers, my manager, but like something from me, like that's something that I would want to try and do. Now, if I explore that with someone and it's not really going anywhere, I'm not pushing on them. I'm not, like kind of like this person that wrote in. If someone is not really receptive to that kind of stuff, I can try changing my strategy a little bit, but at the end of the day, if they're like, I'm just okay, like don't rock the boat too much, it's like, okay, like that's what it is. I just don't want to, I feel like I'm not doing my full duty if I don't explore that. So, okay, so that was the other part, right? Was like how much effort should someone put in? I hope that makes more sense, especially as a team lead. And I think sort of the last part to talk through from my point here, or my perspective is, okay, so you got someone like this on the team. Manager's not making dramatic changes. It's like, you can't just like immediately go hire someone, or, you're not going to terminate this person because they're not interested in more growth and they're already doing good. So you have this person on the team. Like, how do you navigate this kind of stuff? To me, this comes back to what we talked about, which is awareness. So when it comes to planning and capacity for a team, like factoring this kind of thing in, because I think one of the reasons you get some friction is that we start looking at people's abilities, their roles and levels, and we go, well, this person's, we've seen they're capable of X, but like this would be actually a good growth opportunity for them to stretch beyond that. Having awareness that someone is like, they're probably not investing much time and effort and they don't care to have those growth opportunities. You may not want to keep trying to force that, because you may keep finding that you're in this position where you're like, we had to handhold a lot. And even though you do that, because they're not receptive to the mentoring and the coaching around that kind of stuff, it's like you end up having to do the same thing next time. I don't want to say that like people in that position never get better or never learn. That's like totally unfair to say. But if people aren't receptive to it, like an honest question to ask yourself, can you think of a time where you wanted to learn something versus a time where you were like, air quotes here, like forced to learn something? Because I would say if you're forced to go learn something and you don't give a shit about it, you're probably not going to learn it very effectively. Come on, buddy. Let me in here. Nice. But if you're like, I really want to learn about this, like your mind is going to be open. You're probably going to be like a sponge, or try to be, right? So the effectiveness is, in my opinion, going to be much, much higher when you're really interested in learning something. So when you have people that are kind of just content and they're like, I don't care enough, for lack of a better word. I feel bad saying that. I don't mean to suggest they don't care. Like, it's, yeah, maybe don't care sounds too strong, but like there's just not an interest in going further. Then the learning it's not going to be as effective. It's not zero, it's just not going to be as effective. So overall, I would say my recommendation there is like, the awareness is important. Try to factor that in when you're planning. And if that's becoming a problem, because in this case, like the team is small, then continuing to highlight that with the manager around resourcing, I think is important, right? Because there was probably an expectation of the team and how they can perform with an assumption that everyone kind of has this growth path. And if that's not the case, which is not necessarily a problem, it's not the end of the world. In any, like I would say statistically, in like most teams, you're probably going to have a person that kind of fits into this, okay? Like I think that it's not like a super rare thing. It's just like we don't talk about it a lot. So not the end of the world, but raising awareness so that the manager can understand the capacity and team scaling and stuff like that, I think is very helpful. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else like from a team lead perspective that I might recommend. Yeah, I don't know. Like, part of me always comes back to like, is the person genuinely interested in what they're working on? And if there's ways to align that better, then maybe they'll be more effective at those things. So as a team lead, that might be something you can dig into a little bit more. I don't know the type of work the team is doing, so it's hard to say, but if you notice that someone gravitates towards a certain type of work, are they doing it just because it's comfortable, or are they doing it because they like to do it? That might be something to try and tease apart a little bit, right? Because perhaps it's not about growing someone in these other areas that we're trying to dictate for them, but being like, hey, like if we can help you find the thing or help you focus on the thing that you enjoy more, the growth will come sort of naturally because you're interested in it, right? You don't need as much external mentoring and guidance and help and all that. It's like your interest is driving it. But if you're not set up to go work on that stuff, then you don't really get that chance, right? So as a team lead, like I was saying, maybe that's something you could help tease apart to help that understanding. Again, I'm not saying that becomes your responsibility, but it might be something that you can contribute towards. And then again, work with the manager, kind of circle back with that kind of information and say, hey, like, again, if the manager's as far removed as it sounds like, then you as a team lead might be having significantly more interactions with the person to be understanding that, right? So that might be my recommendation on that. I don't think I have any other thoughts, so if I say anything more on that, it's probably just me repeating myself. So probably end that thought there. I'm just getting off the highway, so how do we do for time? 30, it's going to be 40 minutes by the time I park. It's a pretty crappy drive. Well, I guess a couple things to go over for folks. Resume reviews. I've been doing resume reviews on my main channel, Dev Leader, kind of inspired from this channel where people were asking about it. So if you are interested in having a resume reviewed, check out my main channel, Dev Leader. Just look for the playlist, or find one of the videos that's posted on the channel that's a resume review. You don't have to watch the whole thing. I highly recommend you do, because I would appreciate that. But if you want your resume reviewed, if you watch the beginning of one of those videos, it explains how to submit it. I just don't post the information in comments and stuff, so that bots don't crawl and spam me. So you can check that out. Also live streams. So my main channel, Dev Leader, like I said, has the polished, edited videos, but on Monday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific, I do a live stream. And how I've been doing this more recently is generally take a topic from Code Commute, because this channel lets me have like a stream of consciousness and how I'm answering things. It's either stuff from Reddit or questions that you guys are asking, so I know that at least one other person cares about it. And so I will usually take whatever's been watched the most, or sort of has the best engagement from comments and stuff like that, the discussion, and I write a newsletter on it. So that goes out on Saturday mornings. That's weekly.devleader.ca. It's called Dev Leader Weekly. And so I write a newsletter on the video, and then I do a live stream on my main channel, Dev Leader. And that's the Monday night at 7 p.m. Pacific. And so I use the newsletter content as the topic, but it's an AMA, right? So if you're like, hey, Code Commute's fun, I like the topics, and I want to ask Nick a question, but I don't want to write it in, it would be cool to just have a chat back and forth. Like, join the live stream. Please join the live stream. I would much rather dedicate the entire live stream just to answering questions in the chat, right? It's a far better use of time than me just talking through a newsletter. So I would love to see more of you folks there. I know there's been a handful of people from Code Commute that have been joining regularly, which is super cool to see. I appreciate you being there. I hope it's a helpful discussion. So we'll wrap it up there. Thanks so much, folks. And I'll see you next time. Take care.